There's a group on Instagram called Board Game Prototype, made up of game designers and small publishers and things like that. And every week they have a theme, and we post about that theme. We post within that theme as a kind of a collective, and it just gets tagged and we share each other's posts about. And this week's theme was Journey. And it kind of got me inspired to make a video about the journey of my game. So here it is. 11 years ago, I made this video.
Hello, this is the first of two videos I'm putting up on Tabletop Day, my two Tabletop Day videos, about the game that I am designing. And this is the game here that I'm designing.
I can't say precisely when I started working on Trouble on the Tempus, but that was on my old YouTube channel. There's a video about the game and then a playthrough of the game, but it's all the handmade stuff that you can see there. You can see that the board is just drawn on a big sheet of cardboard. All the components are either stolen from other games or, again, just little coloured pieces of paper and card that I've just cut out and just thrown onto the board. The game's obviously changed quite a lot since then, but a lot of it's actually the same. You can see here the board that I drew way back when, the hand-drawn sketch of the ship and layout of the ship that I created, pretty much hasn't changed. It pretty much worked straight from the off. I understood that it needed 3 paths through the ship. They needed to be roughly equidistant, but some of them needed to be quicker than others in theory, depending on how effects would block the way and stuff like that. So I kind of mapped out the ship, pretty much nailed it on the first try, which is interesting. There's a few sketches before then, but that very first board that was ever made, you can see here, compared to the final version of the board, is remarkably similar. At the time, my RPG group was finding it increasingly difficult to play, but I was an internet kid and I was very much into Geek and Sundry, and Will Wheaton's Tabletop had come out, so I sort of slowly started getting into board games through that. Obviously was a big gamer already, and we all played Warhammer from way back in the day, but yeah, slowly got into board games largely through Will Wheaton's Tabletop, or at least learnt about new games through Will Wheaton's Tabletop, and then I slowly infected the rest of my little RPG group with the idea, and we just started collecting board games. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I probably have the largest collection out of my group, but definitely between us it became a thing that we just sort of diversified our collections between us. And one of those early games was Pandemic. If you're not into the hobby world of board games, then a cooperative game is a game where it's the players versus the game. There's a puzzle for the players to solve, or there's some kind of generative effect working against the players, a kind of AI DM as it were. In fact, some of these games, Mansions of Madness for example behind me, now runs on an app, so it has this kind of computer generated variation of itself that it keeps running, so that you don't have to have somebody, a dungeon master or whoever, running the game. In the old version of Mansion of Madness, you had a keeper who was running the scenario, but now you have an app that's doing that, and I actually do think it's better. I'm not like wild about apps in games necessarily, but I do think that the Mansions of Madness is slightly smoother with the app. Anyway, not the point. The point was that we were playing a lot of games, and we were playing a lot of cooperative games. As you can see behind me, my entire shelf here and half the shelf above this side is all cooperative. I can't mirror myself. This side is all cooperative games. I like a good cooperative game. But we were playing a lot of Pandemic, and we would slowly kind of getting better and better at the game and winning it on every difficulty level, including the high legendary difficulty levels, with all of the extras from On the Brink and all the variants sort of thrown in. So we became kind of experts on Pandemic, and as a DM I always homebrew, so I build my own worlds, create my own items, my own character classes. So I've always been sort of writing, because I'm a writer. I've always been a writer. It's always been sort of at my core, is that I want to write things. So inevitably it would come to the fact that I was like, well, maybe I would like to invent a board game. And we bounced some ideas around the group, but eventually I settled on the idea of what if you could have a high difficulty cooperative game that had the mechanic of you being able to see into the future. So either you could learn what's going to happen further ahead in the game, or you could travel backwards through the game and try and fix the problems before they happen. Some kind of precognitive ability or some kind of time travel ability. And that was the very core. Those moments in those cooperative games where you think, well, we've got 2 branching options, one will kill us, one will save us. Or when you see you're about to lose a game and you think, well, if only we'd done that 2 turns ago, we would be in a better position. So could you take that idea and build it as the base core of a game mechanic? So I made this first version, and me and my brother polished it up a little bit, and we tested it amongst our friends, and it was all found a lot of fun. There was a lot going on here. It wasn't completely the polished version that you can see today. It was a bit choppy, but there was definitely something there that worked nicely. Even though we were playing it, sort of making up the rules as we were playing sometimes. But yeah, definitely there was something there that was fun and could be built on. I've been to UK Games Expo quite a lot, and Comic-Con and other conventions, so I sort of existed in that nerd sphere, but I had no real experience of publishing or creating or anything like that. But I set about trying to sell the idea. So I was pitching it to publishers or sending out little packages out to them to be like, hey, here's my concept. And I got into a few conversations with them, but I didn't really know where to take it, or I couldn't answer a lot of the businessy questions that they were asking. I was just like, I just have an idea. Somebody pay me for my idea. And a few conversations went a little bit here and there. You get a lot of rejections. I mean, I was, like I say, I was a writer. I had tried to publish a novel at the time, so I'm used to getting rejections for things. So yeah, you get a lot of rejections, but a couple of conversations like we had follow-ups and we had some chatter before they just sort of went away, sort of died out. Again, this is the most important thing to you, but it's not the most important thing to them. They have got probably, dozens, maybe hundreds if it's a big company, of ideas constantly flowing in and out. I think that might be partly because I just didn't know how to follow up on that. I didn't know how to chase. I didn't have the hustle necessarily to be able to follow up on those people and just like keep badgering and trying to to pitch myself. So the project fell away for a number of years. But then post-lockdown, I decided to pick it back up again. We had some sort of very early printed versions that, again, through my brother's designs, and we decided to reapproach it, relook at it, see if we could redesign it a little bit, and then maybe talk about doing it ourselves, because Kickstarter nowadays has become a kind of storefront for board games. And again, thanks to the internet, the world is a much smaller place. We can directly approach manufacturers and distribution centers and our customers very easily just through the internet, through email and everything else. Things that would have not been accessed to us 20, 30, 40 years ago were being completely out of our grasp. You had to build something from scratch back then, but now we can just sort of approach these people, and these people are eager to work with independent people. We are nobodies, but we can get our game manufactured, say, in China, and get it sent to a distribution house in America and have it distributed out from there. That's just something that we can access without needing those business contacts or any infrastructure in place that is our own, or any kind of necessarily backing. So the landscape is very accessible these days, so that we knew that it was an option. We didn't know at the time when we started anything about it really. We just knew that it existed and was something that we could take advantage of. I keep saying we, so it's important to state that the company at this point is me as the designer of the game, my brother, who's a professional graphic designer and photographer, doing the graphic design and the advertising, and my wife Kaylee, who again you've seen in these videos, who has a lot of sort of administration and networking and experience in that field there. But that has been advantageous for us. We do speak to a lot of independent designers, and a lot of them, a surprising number of them, are sort of one-person teams. And they have a few other people who have helped them out, but a lot of it's just sort of one person who has done the design and knocked together some kind of graphics and just figured out like this prototype, and then it's now just trying to sell it. Whereas we have that core team with a very complementary selection of skills. The fact that my brother is a graphic designer and an artist is huge. It's an enormous part of what's giving us even the slightest chance of success. And having to find an artist that we trust and want to work with, and we like, and we can have casual conversation with, and build the thing, and then having to someone who wasn't as invested in the business as we are, who was just sort of for hire, it just wouldn't be the same. We wouldn't have the same opportunity. So without him, we'd be in a very different position. I'd probably still be just trying to sell the game. Anyway, a few years ago, either during or after lockdown, I can't quite remember, we decided to put together a finalised version, so a final printed version, as we built up towards the UK Games Expo in 2024 last year, with the intention of being like, okay, we know that we can do a starter stand at the UK Games Expo, so we'll think about that, plan for that, whilst we sort of get this design of the game going. And I was playtesting the game like never before, really trying to polish the rules, because it was still very rough back then. You can see in this old videos that there's Gene Stealers, Warhammer Gene Stealers on the board, and that's because there was aliens attacking and things like that, and it was all very it was a lot more complicated. So this stage was me really just stripping down the rules to the bare minimum. So I was stripping down just everything that complemented the time travel mechanic. And an alien invasion didn't really complement that at all. So everything was stripped out and stripped out and stripped out until it was just always, everything was serving the time travel mechanic, and then it sort of fed things back in and seeing if they work, seeing if they complemented the other mechanics, seeing if they were easily easily slipped into the overall theme. We had lots of other effects on the board at one point. We've bored it down to basically just fires and electrical faults. In the final version, there's still damage as well because that's sort of key. But yeah, fires, electrical faults are only real. We had decompression. We had flooding at one point. I can't remember how that was. I think it was like a coolant leak or something that was sort of spraying out into the spaces. Like I said, we had the aliens wandering about the board, attacking people. So yeah, we had lots of other effects in the game, but we just bored it down to sort of the simplest elements, because it doesn't need to be overly complicated. You just as you've got a solid idea. But that was my job as the designer and creator of the game, was to just really play test the shit out of it, hit as many small conventions and meetup groups and clubs, and just play them over and over and over again to just try and figure out what the final version of the game should be. And even now it's still being tweaked ever so slightly. I'll talk more about that at the end, but yeah, even though it's still being little tweaks here and there, but we've really got it to a point where it works really well, and is just very streamlined and simplistic. So that was my job, whilst my brother worked on all of the designs and Kaylee did research into the businessy side of things. So we sat down and had a very serious conversation about whether or not we wanted to give it a try, and we decided that we were going to go for it. We were going to go for it. It was our first game. We were going to have a try at this. If it didn't work, no harm, no foul. We were just going to push ahead and do our best. And if it went nowhere, it went nowhere. If it went somewhere, then we would just keep investing more and more and more until we got to a point where we thought, okay, this could be a thing that we could launch. At this point, I had launched my YouTube channel, KristiansBrain, which you're probably watching this on right now, and it was doing okay. We were doing a little bit of filming for actual play stuff, and we were doing the D&D things like that, partly to me to get back into the habit of filming and the habit of making videos and editing and getting back into everything else. But we were doing the YouTube channel, and as a result, the game was being published under KristiansBrain. So all of our promotional materials were for KristiansBrain. It's a KristiansBrain game. Because I was the primary designer of the game, I created the game, and it was just sort of made sense. I had that name, that brand, that logo that my brother made as well, and it just sort of made sense to encompass it in that. So we went to the UK Games Expo in 2024 with a starter stand, a basic starter stand. If you want to learn more about how the UK Games Expo works from an exhibitor's point of view, I made a video about that the other week. So yeah, you can watch that. But yeah, we went to the UK Games Expo in 2024 with a starter stand, which is the cheapest sort of option you can get, which was a very minimal space with the game. And I was talking a lot about the game online. I run it at a lot of other conventions and clubs, but UK Games Expo is the big one. It's the big one. There's a variety of games, board game conventions in the UK, but Games Expo is the big one. I think it's the third biggest gaming convention in the world. I think the third or fourth. It's around there. So we went there as KristiansBrain, with Trouble on the Tempus as our game, so our flagship game. We were kind of a smash hit. It was quite surprising. People had seen my channel, people had heard about us or met us at other things, and people kind of just came straight to us. It was really quite exciting. People knew we were there, knew we existed, and were keen to come and play the game. So people were sort of, we were busy the whole weekend. We were pretty much fully booked. People were asking to book for the next day, which we were sort of reluctant to do because if people didn't show up, we weren't sure about that. But we started taking sign-ups, just on a little hand-drawn piece of paper for the day, and we were fully booked relatively, by about midday we were sort of fully booked for the rest of the day, which was a lot of fun. And a lot of people I met who were like, oh yeah, we saw you online and we heard about this and and people were loving the game. One person at least said that it was the best game they played at the whole convention, which is fantastic. And again, this was a year ago now, so those rules were a little different. The game has changed a bit. But it's not changed a huge amount. Like obviously the biggest change was throughout the lockdown and those few years before the UK Games Expo. We had just one table, so we were just running the game. We had the very smallest, tiniest, basic bitch kind of stand at the expo, and we were just running the game on the hour every hour, to try it as a teaching game. We were there sort of coaching people through, so we weren't letting the game, we were running the game within the space of an hour, including the rules teach probably about 45 minutes, which is pretty tight. The game's not necessarily that quick, but with us sort of there coaching and helping and you know, deliberately kind of speeding things up, the game, you can play the game in that time span. It is doable. And we get something to our email, people following us on our social medias and everything. But in the lead up to the UK Games Expo, we had decided that we were going to kickstart the game. So either the objective at the expo was going to be go there, display the game, hopefully lure in somebody important, a publisher or somebody important, get people talking about the game, and then try and sell the game, or we were going to try and make it ourselves. And we decided before the expo that we were going to try and make it ourselves. So we had launched the Kickstarter pre-launch page before then. It was very basic at the time. It's literally, the pre-launch is just like a tiny little image, I think it was, with just like a little bit of like 2 sentences of text, just a coming soon page. It wasn't the full-on page that it is now, but yeah, that pre-launch page was up and you could follow it, and we did gather, and that was it. And we launched it like just before the expo. It had no followers before the expo, and we gained 200 odd people following just from the expo alone. So that was it. That went. We considered that pretty good. It wasn't amazing. Like if we'd gained 1,000 followers off the expo, I'd have been like, holy shit, we are going to smash this. But it was a decent amount, and we had a lot of compliments, and we were very busy that week, and a lot of people coming back to play the game. Some people occasionally coming back to play a second time. So it gave us a lot of confidence. So we had that amazing weekend, and then we sat down after pack down on the Sunday night. We dismantled our stand, and we sat down in Hall 3 and had a very serious conversation about how we were going to proceed further, how we're going to go on. We were very confident we had a good weekend, a few more events like this and a few more things like this, and we could get ourselves to a comfortable position where a small Kickstarter would be very doable. And throughout the Games Expo event, Liam and Kaylee had been going to these talks. So they were Longpack did a talk, and a few other publishers, designers did talks. I don't learn. I'm not a good I don't learn well. I don't absorb information very well. So I'm a learn by doing person. So I didn't go to any of these. I think maybe I went to one, but I just know myself, and I cannot learn from that environment. So I just sort of left that to them, and I just sort of stayed on the stand running the game. But we sat down on that Sunday night and we're like, okay, we think we can do this. It's going to take a lot of work over the next year, but we think we could do it. And we sort of mapped out our year and our plans, and on top of everything else, we had the talk that I didn't think that KristiansBrain was the right front for this. I didn't think that it was going to be the way to go with the company itself, the company that the game is produced under. It worked for us in Expo last year, partly because we didn't really have another option. It had to be something, had to be branded as something. But going forward, as a business, it wasn't really going to work. KristiansBrain is this channel, really, and it's me and my social medias, and my social medias aren't necessarily professional. Like I have no interest in being like a professional front of a company, other than for myself. I'm happy to represent myself, but potentially if we were going to produce this game and maybe produce other games in the future and maybe like build a business, then KristiansBrain is not the way to go with that. And also it locks me into it. It makes the company me, and it wasn't me, it's the three of us. And it didn't need to be just like, oh, this is me doing my thing. So we realized that we needed to talk about founding a company under our umbrella of the three of us, that then KristiansBrain is just a part of, a branch of it. It's still, the KristiansBrain is very much me, and the company is the game and whatever else we produce. So that's the first time we started discussing that seriously at that Sunday evening of the expo, that would eventually become Minor Disaster Games. If anyone's curious, in the very, very early version of Trouble on the Tempus, you were drawing disaster cards from the minor disaster deck and the major disaster deck, and the difficulty variable was how many of each you drew. That eventually got boiled down. I don't know why I didn't see this earlier, into the way the game works now, is that one disaster deck with the major disasters shuffled in pandemic style into sections. So you split that deck into 4, say, and you shuffle 1 major disaster into each, in the same way that you shuffle the epidemic cards in pandemic into the deck. And so the ones that you know that they're going to get drawn at a certain point in the deck, they're going to get drawn. So that's kind of the same idea with the major disasters now, which just makes a lot more sense, just a much more logical way of running the game. So at the moment it has growing disasters. Sorry, we keep changing the name of these things. It has growing disasters and major disasters. It still has major disasters because that still makes sense. But it lost the minor disasters. But somehow we sort of latched onto that we quite liked that as a company name. So we are Minor Disaster Games in honor of that very early draft of the Trouble on the Tempus rules. So we set about considering when we could launch a proper Kickstarter. And we threw around February, maybe, sort of Marchy kind of time. But increasingly, as we were sort of building an audience and putting things together, we knew there was a lot of work that needed to be done. And it slowly got pushed back until we seemed like the expo was the most logical point. We were definitely going to go to the expo. We had to book that, in the end of August, September, October kind of time last year. You've got to book that. So we knew we were coming back to the Games Expo for sure. But that became our plan, and we started working on the branding of the company, the final designs of the game. Again, playtesting, taking copious amount of notes, every little detail that we could figure out that anytime somebody gets tripped up. Basically, the later playtesting was me watching people play the game, and then every time they had to ask me a question, writing that down that it needs to be made clearer somewhere, or obviously taking just notes of people that spot things that go wrong, or anytime that someone's confused or a rule doesn't quite make sense or some things kind of clash. What I've managed to make now, I'm quite happy, is the rules feel very organic. Like the rules make sense in their own way. So electrical faults stop you from being able to take the actions that are available on the board, and that makes total sense. Fires place damage, again, that makes total sense. Finishing a turn inside of fire will hurt you because it will place damage, which will hurt you, and again makes thematic sense. So it's trying to get the rules to a point where they are easy to remember because thematically they make a lot of sense. They seem logical. That way the game sort of teaches itself, or after the first teach, everything makes sense in that way that people just sort of remember it quite easily. And it's not a hugely complex game. It is on the slightly more complex. I might say it's a bit more complex than Pandemic. But it is on this, but it's not a hugely heavy game. It's still a relatively, light mid-weight game, I would say. But yeah, getting it to a point where the rules feel organic was very important to me, and I think we've kind of found our way there. So whilst Liam was doing the graphic design work and the artwork and creating ads and things for us, and Kaylee was kind of doing all the background business work, my focus was just to playtest the hell out of the game and hit conventions and hit events and just get involved online. Again, Kaylee was a big part of that as well, getting involved in social media and other online platforms, just trying to get our name out there. Because we're going to be selling our product, basically. We're going to be launching on Kickstarter. That is our storefront, as I said. It's going to be selling the game. We're going to be pitching and selling to an audience. It's like being a market stall or having a shop. You've got to draw people in. So we've got to make sure people know who we are. So getting known in the community and getting talked about, similarly how we want to learn about who else is in the community, so we can talk about their games and learn about their games and buy their games if we like them. So we getting known in that community and getting out into the larger world of the audience that's there, and it's a very keen audience. Board games are on a massive rise, same way that RPGs are. It's a rising industry at the moment, so it's very important to make sure that you are known, not only to differentiate yourself from the pack. It's not competitive in that sense of like we feel like we're trying to beat each other. It's more a case of like we are hobbyists. Our audience are hobbyists like me who already spend too much money on games, on their games collection. So there's room for everyone. There's room for everyone on the gaming shelf. So yeah, it's not we're not competing against each other in that way, but it is a drive to try and like find the audience and make sure the audience knows that you exist. So I've just been hitting conventions like crazy. If you ever see me glancing up, it's because I have my big wall calendar behind my computer screens, so that I can see what all the convention circuit and everything is. So I've been hitting every event possible, trying to be involved online in these things. Doing this channel, which I hope helps people come to me saying, find me on this channel. They did come to the expo last year saying they found this channel, and it's also a good outlet. It's just something for me to do to sort of keep busy and stop from going mad. It also helps me to focus because I don't want to get distracted by too many other things, i.e. working on other designs or working on other projects. I do want to bring the mega game back, totally separate video that I will make at some point soon. But again, I just had to concentrate on Trouble on the Tempus for now, and worry about the mega game later. But yeah, there are a bunch of other designs. Once the Kickstarter's launched, and we'll see how it's doing, and then I can start thinking about other games. But for now, I have to concentrate on this. I'm sort of trying to hit like a convention every 2 weeks this year, which I kind of have managed. There's a lot of stuff going on about, but yeah, we're just really just trying to get our name out there. But we've reached that point where we have been talking to the manufacturers and distributors and all that. We have got a backer kit campaign launching soon. So we're talking to all these sort of professional elements now, and it's getting closer and closer. The launch is just over a month away, and we are in a real like crunch time, business time. Like the design work is basically done. The game's not going to change much. Trying to write the rule book is quite tricky because trying to make sure that it's not overwhelming, but also that it's very comprehensive and everything makes sense and it contains everything that needs to be done. So trying to slim it down whilst also like not losing anything is very important. We've got the game out to reviewers now, which is very nerve-wracking, largely positive response so far. But yeah, it's out to reviewers, it's out to YouTubers, and other people who are like hopefully having fun with it. Our intention, as I say, is to launch the Kickstarter on the 27th. That's 3 days before, depending on how you count days, before the expo. It's the Tuesday, with the expo starting on the Friday. But obviously we're going to be there on the Thursday. So Thursday is a setup day for the expo. So basically we're going to launch on the Tuesday, and we're going to do probably a live streaming event on that in some way. And then we've got the Tuesday, Wednesday to just sort of like work on the Kickstarter and monitor the Kickstarter. And that's because we've not done anything quite like this before. This is very new to us. So we wanted that buffer, those couple of days that we can just be like, okay, let's hash out any problems. Anything goes wrong, we can fix it. We could have launched at the expo, but again, if anything goes wrong, we're a bit locked into the expo there, particularly if we've got a stand. So we've got those 2 days, then we're off to the expo on the Thursday, do all of our setup, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we've got sort of a 5-day period there, the 2 days of the launch, and then, no, 6-day period. Yeah, 2 days of the launch, the Thursday our setup day, which will be pretty distracting, and then the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the 6-day kind of launch of the Kickstarter campaign. And they always say you make your most money in your first 48 hours and your last 48 hours. But yeah, that's sort of our 6-day sort of period where we'll see where we're at the end of the Games Expo, see where the Kickstarter is at. We'll also be giving away some promotional cards and things at the Games Expo. There'll be cards that you can only get at the Expo. They will not be available in the Kickstarter. They will not be available to buy. They'll just be cards that we're giving away at the UK Games Expo and possibly future expos if we have. It depends on how many we get printed. But yeah, there were cards you can only get by coming to us directly. You won't be able to get them anywhere else. So yes, that's one of the things we're going to be doing there. If you've backed Kickstarter here, you can have a couple cards. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're working on the designs for that. We're also going to be hoping to be testing expansion stuff at the expo. The expansions are going to be available on the Kickstarter, but we are going to be hoping to like demoing them. It's the first time they'll have been being really demoed in the public eye at the expo, probably in the evenings, maybe in the hotels. Things won't be on the expo floor, I wouldn't have thought, because we're going to just be promoting the base game there. But yeah, the expansion stuff that hopefully we'll be doing events for. Keep an eye on me posting about that. So that will be fun. Those will be available on the Kickstarter, like I said, as well as a couple of added extras to the Kickstarter. But yeah, if you just want to get the base game, that's totally fine. That's what we're selling. What we want is the game to be as polished and finished as possible, so that for the Kickstarter, we can fulfill it as quickly as possible. Like, I appreciate that sometimes Kickstarters take a long time to fulfill and things get dragged out and things. But I think a lot of games go into the Kickstarter not finished. And that could be partly because Kickstarter was intended as a crowdfunding platform, and until you've got that Kickstarter backing, you might not be able to afford to finish and polish your game. in the way that we can afford to do it, because we are a team of with all the necessary expertise that necessarily you don't have as an individual. If it was just me by myself, I would not be as far along as I was by a long shot. Yeah, people who don't have that sort of backing then have to retroactively fill in a lot of those gaps once they've got the money. Like, even if the Kickstarter makes £1 million, I'm not going to be like, oh, I've got £1 million, we can spend so much time polishing the game and doing this, that, and the other. No, I don't want to do that. I want to get the game out to the people that bought it. I want to get the game out there. So we're not gonna we'd tweak it a bit and we'd polish it up a bit, but we're not going to go nuts so that it takes years for the Kickstarter to fulfill. No, I want to get the game made as quickly as possible and out to the backers, because that's my objective, just to get it made. So we want to we've got the game to an almost completely fine-tuned, perfectly finished place. If we make the insane money, then that extra money will go into the next project or go into the company in some way. It won't necessarily go into the game, because again, if you do that, I can see the logic of doing that, but if you do that, you're just delaying production, just delaying it down the line. And I would much rather get the game out into the hands of the people that bought it. But yeah, that is where we're at. This is a long ass video, so I don't want to take any more of your time, but I do appreciate you watching it, appreciate you coming for this journey video. Happy to answer any questions you may have in the comments. Anything that I didn't cover, I feel like I've been talking about ages, so I really hope I've covered everything. But yeah, I will, again, questions in the comments, any other thoughts you might have in the comments. Check out our links below to our Kickstarter will be there. It'll be a pre-launch page, or if it's after May the 27th, it will have launched and you can buy the game, which is very exciting. So yeah, thank you for watching. Do all the YouTube buttons, press all the likes and the subscribes and the other things, and I will see you in another video hopefully very soon. And this is Trouble in the Tempus. It's a game, and it's so much of my life right now, and I really hope it's appreciated. If you're going to be at the UK Games Expo, I will see you there. Otherwise, I might see you at another convention in the future. Thanks for watching. The end.